This is V8 Scops.
The Flatchat Podcast V8 Scops edition.
Let's get the season underway. VRS, V8 Scops.
No, it's called more contact. Wow,
Down the inside, drives got 10. No, they touch. They hold it together though. Everybody goes. Dulcel gets a storming start from the front row.
Oh, hang on a minute. Who is that?
Around the outside, gets the inside, hold it down to the inside, he sends one, tries to make it inside.
Rewind on the edge for the hairpin, okay.
Goes up to the room and gets the position.
G'day and welcome back to the Flatchat Podcast for what is our first show since witnessing a thrilling conclusion to the 2018 Supercars Online Premier Series finale at Road America, where TTR's Jared Filsell took home his second consecutive Scops title ahead of team boss and team owner Madison Down and Ethan Griggold of ERT. Now, it's been a really big couple of weeks for our beloved iRacing community since the Scops season has finished up at the start of the month, with Week 13 seeing all other major and minor Season 4 championships coming to a close too. To top that all off, only last week we had one of the biggest iRacing service updates, adding the much glorified and long-awaited day-to-night transition on all tracks, plus some new paid and free content such as the Charlotte Roval and famed Japanese drift track Tsukuba Circuit, as well as a couple of new open-wheel cars too. Oh, and in case that wasn't enough, guys, just to carry a final cherry onto an already calorie-loaded iRacing butternut cheesecake, this may be some of the best news all year. Scops supercar fan favourite Ethan Griggold just took home Aussie Driver Search main drive for 2019 in Jake Burton's Toyota 86, which will of course be one of the subcategories for a number of real-life V8 supercar race weekends. So, to help unpack all this and much more, the podcast panel follows. First of all, obviously, Christopher. I used to host the Flatchat podcast, but then realised the limit to my talent, so I handed over the reins to someone else much more capable than me, Kessie. How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Oh, mate, that's a way to go. I get the man flu. I ask him to host, and that's the way you introduce me. Jesus Christ!
I know. I already feel bad.
Seriously. Oh, nah, it's good. It's good to be here, mate. Thanks for taking the reins, mate. I'll sound a little bit off, so I thought I'd throw for the sake of the quality of the podcast. I thought I'd throw to you, and you're obviously a lot better at what you do than I am. So, yeah.
Well, this week anyway, I'll give myself that. Usually, you are the host extraordinaire, and that's the way it is. But thanks, mate. Thanks for letting me have a crack. But
worries.
Also with us, our special guest, direct from the depths of the Delara honeycomb carbon fibre surrounded monocoque heaven, Brock, the Burkett and Brady head barista, Kade. Welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, look, I'm still sitting in this little carbon fibre encasing, and it's pretty comfy in here. I reckon I'll stay here for the night for the podcast.
They're not too small, those F3 cars. And what are you driving? 3.5s?
Oh, yeah, F3 car more. 3.5 tries to kill me every time I get in it. Now, that's no fun, is it?
Now, I have heard that Mr. Max Verstappen, for real, has been on the service every night. Have you had a chance to come within, 5 or 10 seconds of the man?
Yeah, I think I've been about 3 seconds off him, and you know what? I think can be pretty happy with that sort of pace. He's an absolute freak in the F3, though, man. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I watched one of his onboards. It's like, I think that his brake pedal doesn't work.
I don't know, man. It's scary. He goes for it, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. You would have thought, mate, he's got a career in F1 for sure.
I don't know, man. Seems like a bit of a pleb, though, sometimes.
I got really tired of all the questions, so I think if I get a few more, I'll headbutt someone.
Anyway.
Also on this show, guys, we've got a really special guest, and he's been kind enough to join us this evening. He is the host of another fantastic motorsport-related podcast where he covers a mixture of different race disciplines, a really impressive lineup of real-world race driver interviews, as well as a few sim-related chats as well. The podcast is called The Minds of Motorsport, and he is Anthony Riley. Anthony, welcome to the show, mate.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problems, mate. Well, we've got quite a bit to cover on our show with our regular iRacing content, but before we do all that kind of stuff, would you mind telling us a bit about Minds of Motorsport and how you got into the whole racing podcast environment?
Yeah, so basically it all came down from originally being a fan always a fan of the supercars from when I was a kid, and in 2016 me and a mate of mine decided to do the rounds and follow the supercar circuit around Australia, and as you do, and we've kind of continued that up until now. So I think we've missed one or two races in the last three and a half years. So it's been a bit of a solid effort. And during that time, we've kind of got to know some people in the paddock, and that kind of made me aware about how difficult it is for people to make a professional career in motorsport. And there's a lot of stuff out there that people might be lacking, whether that be knowledge around how to sort of take their own career to the next level, what to do, who to speak to, and just to get insight, especially from the mindset and psychological side of racing. So that's really where the idea for the podcast came from. My background's in financial markets, so I kind of love the whole mindset of peak performance and professional athletes and stuff like that. So it was a good opportunity for me to speak to some like-minded people in a different sort of industry, and get some contacts and connections in the motorsports world. So it all started from there. It kind of was a bit of an idea for 6 months until I actually kind of figured out how to build a website and how to record audio and edit audio and do all this stuff. And then from it was just all getting the word out there, hitting people up, getting people on the show, and pushing on.
Yeah, you've got a really impressive lineup of guests. And I mean, you did mention that you do head out to plenty of supercar events, and I'm sure that we have plenty of listeners that would be pretty envious of that, to go to only a few.
100%. Got one right here.
And Norrie ate your heart out, I think. Norrie ate your heart out.
Absolutely. Norrie's our other guest, Anthony, and I'm sure that, I shouldn't call him a guest, he's actually one of the founding members of the podcast, and he's on a bit of a sabbatical at the moment, but yeah, he definitely tries to get to a few races, but not as many as you've been able to. But, if you do go through the paddock and meet quite a few people and get some contacts, how do you actually line them up to come on your show?
Yeah, so basically how I generally do it is most of the time it's done through my social media. So I've done the hard yards to build up my own social profile around motorsport and the other things that I do, and basically I've just contacted people through that, lined them up. And I generally never do an interview at the track. Generally, I'm more just meet and greet, like just showing my face around, and because I go there to enjoy it as a fan. I mean, I'm not particularly keen on sort of going there and spending my weekend chasing people and trying to get them to do an interview, because most of the episodes average an hour, so the chances of having people able to give an hour of their time on the race weekend is very slim. So, but generally, we just try and tee it up whenever they're available, and majority of it's been through networking through social media.
Well, can I get you to just set yourself a challenge? Sorry to interrupt, mate. Just set yourself a challenge for next season. Go up to SVG just before a race begins and try and take him away from the race. Just sit him down, get him in a lounge chair, strap him down if you need to. But yeah, that'll do Tickford and my beloved Chaz Mostert a whole lot of good.
You're a sick man.
You guys got some cable ties?
We can organise something. Yeah.
Isn't that what they make the 888 cars out of?
Oh, here we go.
Well, insert dum cha drum sound effect. But Chris does have cable ties. You'd think they were for SVG, but it's actually for Chaz Mostert when he finds the perfect time to set up that romantic music under candlelight, and the zip ties come out.
Oh, wow.
Take that gag out of Chaz's mouth.
Next level.
Anyway, the good thing about doing this kind of podcast, Anthony, is the editing requirements afterwards. We can pretty much say whatever we want. So that'll get cut.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Must take you a while to do the editing, mate. I've had so many times where I went through, and it's quite interesting actually. You don't realise sometimes how many times you might repeat the same words in your vocabulary throughout an interview or a podcast. So it's quite interesting when you re-listen to some of them and you're like, oh no, that word's really like frustrating me now, I've got to cut it all out. And then you go to the effort of editing for a couple of hours and then your computer freezes. And then, meanwhile, you're meant to be putting the episode out tomorrow, so you got to freaking do it again. And you're like, oh mate, Jeez.
See, boys, a man after my own heart. He understands the struggle. This is the struggle that I
Mate.
rip hair out about Kessie. The Command S button is a savior, mate. The one that saves the work on the fly.
Just every click, control it.
Well, we try to be perfectionists, but it never really works out, does it? Always spend it at least an hour or two every episode for sure, trying to cut the garbage out. But we're trying to work to a point where there's nothing there, and then we can go live and just put a completely free to air, show out there. But I think
pay per view,
$50 a view.
Yeah, I think sometimes people like to hear this kind of what is interesting actually is the amount of times where you have a chat beforehand, tell the person what you're going to be doing, like all podcasts, sort of interviews, and then you get into it and then you end it, and then all of a sudden all the gold comes out. You're like, what's this? Should have kept recording.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I try to just keep mine recording for a while until everyone goes, all right, that's it. All right, fire it out.
Well, I think it's when and this is interesting, you see, I mean, I probably would be inclined to leave all this stuff in that we're talking about at the moment because it's one of those moments where, for us, and particularly speaking to the great people, like we have had quite a few people on our show from the V8 Scops iRacing community and a couple of others too, but everyone's really lovely, really nice, but a race driver and a competitive sports person is that. And if you take, for example, someone like, let's say, going through an Aussie driver search campaign, like Jake Burton, Ethan Grigolt's going to go through the same thing. There's literally media training to make sure that they present a particular professional, politically correct persona to make sure that it's down the line, it toes the line to make sure sponsors are happy, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in our community, I think that most people have taken on that type of role as well. So drive for a team on iRacing, you better represent it well. It's really, really good to have that professional sound. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's what we expect. But it is the stuff where people can just let their hair down that we're trying to cultivate here on our podcast. So yeah, it's good to know that you're going through the same thing and have those struggles where you turn the mic off and all of a sudden the personality shoots through.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you kind of find sometimes that the stuff that's spoken about outside of the actual interview is probably not going to get put in it, even if it was recorded, just because of the
language.
I guess. Nah, not language. Maybe sometimes the context and what's actually being said, and sometimes it might relate to people's opinions of people or things or categories or situations or things like that, and could just cause a little bit of dramas. But I mean, I haven't really had anything like that, but I do know that sort of thing can come about.
I don't think anyone's told Jake Sperry, JC,
what, that he sucks and that he should never be allowed to commentate anything again because he's...
Well then.
Holy were we recording? Oh, see, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Yeah. Those opinions that you should... The inside voice, Jason. Inside voice. Yeah. Luckily, you're not recording a podcast right now. But, Jake, love you.
Yes.
Yeah, nice save. I love it. Well done.
Look, I wanted to ask Anthony about your podcast, and I've heard quite a few episodes you've got, and they're really detailed. The questions you ask and really bring out a lot of info from the drivers, and I'm interested in the ones you've had quite a handful of interviews that are somewhat sim related. Most of the guys on there are real life drivers, obviously, but the relation to sim racing has been a feature in a few of your interviews because some of the guys have come from that world. Has that been something that you've been into yourself as far as wanting to find out their sim racing experience as well as real life stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I haven't done much sim racing myself. I've actually got a bit of a nice Fanatec setup.
Yeah, nice.
In boxes in the cupboard because I can't justify buying the rig yet that I want.
I'll give you my address, mate. I'll give you my address. Send it over. That's all good, mate.
What wheel do you have exactly, man? What you got in the cupboard waiting to be used?
I've got the McLaren GT3 and I've got the PS4. Is it Club Sport Elite?
CSL Elite.
Oh, CSL.
Yeah,
that's what
CSL Elite. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I've got all that. Yeah, well, I want the R seat. one of the R seats. So I'm been a bit of a. I wanted a Black Friday sale on it, but the bloody grubs didn't do it. So I was like, nah, you're not getting my money then.
Yeah. No,
fair call.
I've definitely got some advice for you after that, mate.
But yeah, no, I was fascinated by the people who had gone through the sim, because I think there's still a lot of like preconceived ideas about sim races. It's just on computers and all this. So it's good to interview people like Matt Simmons and Rudy Van Buren and guys like that who have gone through sim and actually done something quite remarkable from it. You know, like Rudy Van Buren's a McLaren F1 sim driver, you know what I mean? And he's working with the team on race weekends in preparation for the car. And then, you know, you have Matt Simmons who went and raced in the Spa 24 hour and stuff like that. So for those options to be available for people, it's really good, and it's really good to hear it. And I think it's great to sort of get it out there so people know that, hey, these guys who are doing sim racing, it's not just all about, you know, playing around on a computer game. There's actually like a career that can be taken from this. But I do think that people do see it as, oh, I could go and do that, where they really don't understand actually what it's taken, even from a sim point of view, to actually be successful.
Yeah, right on. And that is interesting actually, to have that, you know, coming from the sim side of things that we are, it is a bubble inside itself. And there's a few guys that venture out and go from sim to real life. Plenty of real life racers that use a sim for many different reasons. But you are speaking about really linking that world together and seeing the benefits and what you can get from each side. Someone like Rudy in the McLaren sim, sim tester. That's a real job, and I mean, his career is to drive a simulator for real, and it's helping plenty of race cars that McLaren run. It's amazing, and there's the World Championship Grand Prix series on iRacing. They've a lot of those drivers had ventured into this F1 esports realm, where they're actually getting a lot of the F1 teams are putting drivers into sims and having competitions and actually using those guys for their data and their skills too. But no, that's really interesting stuff, mate. I also just want to move on too. And Chris, do you remember how we interviewed? Yes, you remember Mark Samuel, Redback Racing Team's manager,
of course,
the man, the myth, the legend,
yes.
The man, the myth, the legend, Mark Samuel, and he was he mentioned Chris Radicic, Paul Radicic, XV8 Supercar driver's brother. Yep. He was trying to get us to have a chat with him, and Anthony goes and secures the interview way before us, and. Don't even need to speak to Chris anymore. I can hear it all on Minds of Motorsport.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a good interview, that one, actually.
Yeah, well, he does a lot of really good work for them, as Mark said in his podcast, that you know, with setups and for Redback Racing, just for the people who don't know, and like they've come leaps and bounds this season since Chris has had a big involvement. There's a couple of people coming through the ranks in real life racing, like Harley Haber, for example. Who was in the Kumo series last season, and like it's good to see someone like almost like a mentor for that team. And you've had Chris on your show, and you know, we had that opportunity, and we missed out.
Yeah, he's quite an insightful guy. Like, it was a real pleasure to have him on the show. I mean, just hearing one thing that he did mention, which is something that sort of stuck with me, was the whole idea is, you know, everyone looks at we're always talking about sim races and the sim races in the real world, but something that was brought up by Chris during the podcast was the need to have more people on the engineering side, people who, you know, who want to get into, you know, supercars and all the other categories around the world and stuff like that, and really to be able to, you know, prepare cars multiple times a week, whereas, like, you know, you might be studying and doing it once every, you know, 2 months, 3 months or something, depending on the category you're involved with. Whereas, you know, you can come into the sim environment and be testing your skills and, you know, becoming better so much quicker. That was something that I found very interesting, and I'd be very intrigued to see in the future if we have a lot more people on the engineering side come through sim racing and end up being very successful actually working on real life cars.
For sure. And I heard that part of Chris's interview that you were speaking to him about as well, which was an insight into how he looks at what his role is at Redback Racing. His role, from my listening to your interview with him, is that he's been a driver himself, then on to an engineer, mechanic, and at this particular phase of his career and hobby life, he's got Redback Racing Team as he sets the cars up and gets the engineering stuff done. And it sounds like, to set up something where the engineering stuff and the car setup, which it is as important as driving the car if you want to be competitive in a race on the sim as much as it is in real life. So yeah, to get people more involved in that it can only help the sport. It isn't a sport in our opinion as far as an esport goes. And with Scops being the kind of leader in the V8 supercar realm, setups are so important, and Chris does a fantastic job, and the work shows in the proof of the results that team he's with, Redback Racing, has been getting over this last season. But talking about Scops though, that's the Supercars Online Premier Series. Have you heard much about this series? Did you talk to Chris about it, or have you familiar with it?
Yeah, I've during last season I managed to. I think it was last season. It might have even been the season before. I watched a number of races online. I kind of got myself familiar with it because I wanted to check out, who was driving in it, and if there were some guys in some of the lower categories. The 86s and Aussie race cars and stuff like that were in it, and sort of see how they go, and kind of get a gauge of who's out there, what's around and stuff. So I wouldn't say I've followed it for ages, to be honest, but I've probably kept my eye on it for maybe the past year.
Yeah, right. It's been a good year too. Been a very good year to keep an eye on it. And look, you talk about the lower category guys. There's other people that we haven't mentioned. James Duckworth this year has been a breakthrough. He's sort of just made the Scops realm, and he went through the development series early this season. Yeah, he's. I mean, to be honest, he's just reaching his potential. The proof's in the pudding when you look at his drives in real life as well. He's obviously a quick boy, but it is definitely from our opinion anyway. You can definitely get some quality drivers out of the sim racing realm, and I and JC and probably Brock as well believe that iRacing is probably the closest to real, unless you're talking Shane Van Gisbergen talking about the V8, where he doesn't think that.
Well, you got to give the respect, as in I think he does know what he's talking about. You'd hope so, anyway.
Really?
As in,
but those he only came second this year, I'm pretty sure, though. Yeah, there's that.
Where'd Chaz finish? No, but like those guys like Shane coming on and using iRacing as a form of, I mean, if you think about it really, if you talk to any motorsport enthusiast, a driver, like a race car driver, pretty much all of them say that racing fast cars is like an addiction. And literally when the season finished for SVG, pretty much 2 days after the season finale in Newcastle, he started driving on iRacing like every night for about a week.
Yeah, whooping our ass in an IndyCar league. He has some serious speed on the service too, man. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's shameful actually how fast he is.
What would be interesting would be to see exactly what they do that for. There would probably have to be some specific, whether it's just to kind of keep their eye in, or whether it's just for reflexes or for something like that. It'd be quite interesting to see exactly why they do it. Like, apart from it being fun, but there would obviously be some benefit that would help them keep them sharp, you would think, right?
I think there is. But also to what you were saying, Chris, specifically iRacing, if you take all those aspects that you're talking about, Anthony, such as fun and the reflexes, even if they weren't there, just purely for the competition, iRacing really is the center point of it. And I personally believe that drivers like that specifically will sit in iRacing literally just for the competition, whether it's actually racing wheel to wheel or just hot lapping and getting times in. I think it's a competitive urge for some of them. I definitely.
I'll give you one example of that. I 100% agree with you. Anton De Pasquale obviously has proven to be definitely one of the top future guys in the V8 Supercar Series. Anytime you see the name Anton De Pasquale has joined the server, you know that he will sit in that session until it finishes, and unless he has got the top time. So I've seen him come in, and Jared Filsell, who's the 2-time champion or back-to-back champion of Scops, has put in a time, and Anton will sit there for 30, 40 laps just to make sure that he gets the top time. It's pretty crazy. And you can tell he does that because the session could go for 2 hours and he's still sat there the whole time trying to get that one time. So, yeah, they obviously love it. I mean, as you said, JC, it is an addiction for these guys. And I know that you've driven a race car before, and I've been in one, and it's damn fun. If you're into it and you can drive those things, then why not?
Oh, for sure. And it just enhances the experience, whether you go from a sim into a car and then back again, or the other way around. Each one is just, it's like salt and pepper on a nice T-bone steak. It enhances the other side of the world, if you know what I mean.
Complementary to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's really cool seeing these guys in the off season of not just V8 supercars, might I add, but can I just blow my own trumpet here and say that a couple of days ago, I put a post up on social media of my name up the top of a qualifying session in front of none other than Ferrari 2019 newcomer Charles Leclerc for the F1.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to have to stop you there, JC. It's not Leclerc, it's Leclerc.
Leclerc, like Charles Chocolate Eclair. Are we calling him that now?
We can call him that if you like. If that gets it right, then that is fine.
Can we call him Charles Chocolate Eclair, second place Leclerc? Yeah, that's it.
That's fine. That's good to me. Right.
So, but anyway, that was it. If anyone saw that, I know, right? Oh, I am a douchebag. But hey, if anyone saw that photo, that it didn't really end that way. That's why I just put the qualifying session results up. So I won't tell you what actually happened in the race. That's a secret. And not just Leclerc, but Max Verstappen, the one and only, the Red Bull phenomenal F1 master ace, has come in and started driving iRacing every single night this week too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they're all lost without their motorsport in the real world. But it's cool to see. It's a really cool thing for me as a sim racer and a fan of these guys to see them coming in and racing wheel to wheel with the likes of us plebs. And it's good. It's good for esports. It's good for iRacing, and it's good for motorsport in the real world too, because it brings down that disconnect between real world and sim racing, and it's bringing it bring closer and closer in with guys like Verstappen, Leclerc, Van Gisbergen, and McLaughlin all racing and getting closer with the sim racing community too. I think it's a really cool, I guess you could call, happening. And I hope it continues into the future, not just because it's summer break or winter break, depending on which part of the world you're in, but because they're actually starting to get into sim racing and enjoying it.
Yeah, right on. Absolutely. Well, let's hope they do stay, because we can learn a few things. Because I actually saved the replay of both Leclerc's MX-5 lines and Verstappen's F3 lines around Brands Hatch, and both of them were pretty amazing, I've got to say. Like I said, Max Verstappen I don't think he uses the brake pedal. It's absolutely ridiculous. But look,
I don't think he uses the brake pedal in real life as well, to be honest.
I think Ricardo would say the same thing. Okay, guys. Well, let's move on to the next part of the show. And by the way, thanks, Anthony, for having a chat with us about what you're doing. And can I ask you, if anyone out here of our 3 or 4 listeners that we have on a weekly basis would like to find the Minds of Motorsport, you're on YouTube and iTunes. Have you got any other channels out there?
Yeah, we're on. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, on our website, or on YouTube. And you can also find our social media profiles on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
So is that just the Minds of Motorsport to type into most of those socials?
Yep, Minds of Motorsport, yep.
And the website is mindsofmotorsport.com?
.com.
Wonderful. All right, peeps, go and check that out, please, because Anthony's work is absolutely fabulous. We're big fans. All right, so moving on. Anthony, I hope you can stay and have a little sit in about this kind of stuff we're talking about with our iRacing community kind of news, which, you know, one of the things I wanted to cover in a second does relate to you, mate. But let's just go through a few other things. We have had the roundup of the season 4 of 2018. We're at the moment in week 1 of the 2019 series, even though we're not even through New Year's yet. But work that one out.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Who knows how long this thing will take to edit? It might come out in January.
Oi.
So let's go through a couple of the winners and the losers, or mostly the winners of our last season championships. First off, we have the Oceanic Sim Racing OSR main series, who crowned a new champ in rising alien talent, Brett Loxton of KRF Motorsports. And he actually also heads into the remaining AOSC Bathurst 650 with a lead of over 500 points. So he's on fire, guys.
I don't know if he's got a shot.
He could still lose it. No, I'm kidding. No, it's really, really good to see him. We were talking about him after Canada, I believe, the enduro race there at Canada, and how far he's come as a driver. And that just proves that win in the main series, how well he's doing in AOSC, everything he touches in a V8 supercar, he is smashing at the moment. And it's really great to see. I'm loving it. And it's good to see new talent rising to the top. I feel like for a while we've had the typical names up the front of the field. Your Downs, Phil Sells, Greg Galt this year being up there, El Nabi, Rogers when he's around and not doing his international commitments. But now we're getting guys like Loxton who are starting to come to the forefront and take it to these guys that have been at the front for so long. And it's really cool to see. I'm loving it.
Without the large team name, that's not to take away from Zuva, but I mean the amount of people that, you know, the likes of Phil Sell and Rogers have behind them. They've got, you know, TTR's got 7 to 10 cars in the top split every single race. So you know, Brett doesn't have the as much support. He's got very good support in what he does have with the Zuva boys. You know, with like the likes of Henry King and, you know, Griffin Gardner, depending on the week. And, you know, he's definitely brought his game. I'm not really sure how he's done it. Besides, I mean, we spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and he just said laps. He just did laps. When I asked him how he did it, laps. So, yeah, hats off to someone for, you know, really getting into the dedication of it. And, yeah, he's definitely one to watch for Scops next season.
Yes, he is. 2019 beckons the likes of Brett Loxton to the podium, I would say. I hope so. And he's got an off-season of a couple of months to get even more familiar with staying on that consistent pace. I mean, if he challenges the likes of Phil Sell, that'd be absolutely brilliant. The Scops season has just been ramping up in competition throughout this year, and it's looking to really bust into an even higher stratosphere next year. But so he actually took out the OSR main and also is looking to head into the AOSC championship with a pretty comfortable lead. Those are the two kind of main series, I guess, that we do look at in these 4-season championship years, if that makes sense. Words are good. But look, the other one, on a minor level, I just wanted to bring up the development series from OSR, which was taken out finally by ASM, or All-Star Motorsports, James Scott, which we're all very happy about.
Time.
You hear that, James? Cassie's happy. We're all happy.
Jesus.
Oh,
Brock.
my God. That was about 5 seasons in the making. Brock, are you a happy manager, mate?
Oh, very much so. He put a lot of effort into getting the OSR Dev Series and making it to the end there and winning it. So, he's done seriously well, and I know ASM as a team are proud of him. And yeah, his pace has been awesome lately, so it's really good to see. And I think Ethan was our last Dev Series winner, and well, we've seen how he's been going. He's been getting better and better. So hopefully James can do the same. But
yeah, for sure.
It's good to see. And again, it's back to like touching on Loxton and a few of those names coming up. It's good to see guys like James getting the pace on, Loxton, Ethan as well, and just bringing it up a bit, bringing that competition up as we were talking about before with Anthony, and making it even harder for plebs like you and I, Kessie, to get into Scops.
Yeah, I know. It's very upsetting. No, I'm joking. I love it. Bring more competition. We need a third split for Scops soon. That's how heavy the competition's getting. So.
Oh, please no. Just be you and me going at it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Anthony, join up to iRacing. We'll have that Fanatic gear, and you'll definitely make second split in front of these guys for sure. I can tell.
I'll get there at some point.
Go to Bunnings Warehouse, spend about $80 on some materials, and you should be able to get a rig together nice and easy.
Love it.
I know.
Should. We've seen shockers, mate. One of the fastest drivers in the V8 supercar on iRacing, Brady Myers. I've seen pictures of his bloody rig set up to a table with a computer chair that's being held in position by his mum's washing basket that makes sure it doesn't rock around.
That's the stuff.
Yeah,
he's a top 15 driver in top
dedication,
top splitter Scops.
It is. But I also did see a picture of him selling his really robust and sturdy steel framed rig, where the base plate for the wheel had been snapped off, and I can only imagine that a fit of rage might have caused that. Have you got any insights into this, Chris?
Not on the specific incident, but I can imagine it. That's for sure.
Hey, what else are you to think? Sorry, Brady, mate. We're massive.
It must have been one of those massive rivalry battles with Daniel Williams that seems to come up every race.
We harpen back to the Road America incident that.
No. It's where it goes. Their rivalry goes back to when they both got on the sim. Definitely.
You know what's weird is that I've never heard this before, specifically from sportsmen and competitive people. I asked Daniel who was at fault. He said it was Brady's fault. I asked Brady whose fault it was. He said it was Daniel's fault. Go figure. Have you heard of that before? It's weird.
I thought they just agreed on things. They're race car drivers after all. They're civilised.
Anthony, I'd say you've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah, you do.
Anthony's like,
no comment.
Yeah, look, I'm not even listening. You guys are talking garbage. But look, that is great to see James taking out that trophy, and hopefully he'll be around to go into the bigger and better things. I mean, he's already driving in Scops and done enduros and everything with the likes of Marlon J. McMullen, which super competitive anyway. So nice to go in there and take it away from those much needy younger drivers there, James. Just saying. No, look. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the new build and everything, which has given us a crazy new outlook on driving. Yeah. All the tracks on the service, you can now go into the nighttime and drive Indy cars with no headlights.
It is scary. I mean, the last podcast we did was obviously for Max Spence, and that finished in it was at Lime Rock Park.
Chicane. Yes.
Yep, Chicane. And it was pitch black. Jake and I were doing the administration for that race, and it was very hard to pick who was leading, who wasn't, who to eliminate. It was ridiculous. However, it's very fun. The liveries stand out. If you've got a neon livery like a nice bright green or a bright yellow, then that sort of benefits the other drivers.
Hey, Brock, SVG's bright baby blue livery would have gone down well in that.
I reckon that would be perfect.
No, I was just going to say it's completely changed the way that the racing is had on iRacing. Like the racing's always been really competitive, and the competition's always been there. But now you can make a car setup that is good for when the clouds are over, when the road is nice and cold, or one that comes on when the sun comes out or when the sun goes down. It's awesome. Like the difference it makes on the road is huge. And you can set the track up to go to nighttime in an hour, if that. And it's just awesome. It's been a lot of fun to muck around with.
So in other words, Bo Albert has been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, Mr. Flashy Lights himself.
Absolutely. Those lights continuously flashing into the sunset. Brock, have you had much racing lately? Or because I've noticed that you've only been driving these fantastic new open wheelers. They're so good, aren't they?
Yeah, no, I've been doing a bit of driving, bit of testing in GTs, and I actually did the the GT around Bathurst in the early morning, so you sort of go from that sunrise, dawn into the daytime, and that was a really cool thing to do. I mean, I think for some of us enduro races, that sort of thing is the dream. You can watch it in real life, and now you can do it in the sim. So yeah, every time I get in the sim, it's you look at you almost crash into the wall because you're too busy looking at the sights of the sky and the sunrise, sunset, whatever it is. I've nearly had a few. I definitely have had a few near misses after that.
Well, all right, speaking of stopping the car and having a look, the night that it came out, I think we were chatting on here, and Reece Gardner, SimSpeed commentary genius, was on here, and we were sitting in a session in a Porsche RSR at Phillip Island at night time, and we were hurraying and hoo-ha about how you could see the lights flashing in the distance from one side of the track to the other. And it's nighttime, obviously, and he had the timer going. And we're driving around for about half an hour, and all of a sudden you come down through turn one and then go around the southern loop, and the sun literally starts rising that lap. And we're both just like, get out of town. We put the brakes on, stopped, and literally watched the sunset come up through some overcast clouds. It was absolutely brilliant. I took some photos. So good.
And just to clarify, with for Anthony's sake, I know a lot of like Project Cars does that day-night transition, but the difference between them doing it and iRacing doing it is that it took iRacing a very long time to do it, but there was a reason for it. The difference in the track, the difference, the visual differences, it's so much more obvious than the other games. So big deal for iRacing fans, obviously. Finally being able to catch up to that. And I suppose the next thing is rain.
Yeah, well, to touch on that, like the changes at the track, I was doing a NASCAR race today, 47-degree track temperature at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so full sun. Sun went behind the clouds, track temperature dropped 5 to 6 degrees straight away.
Wow.
And then the clouds only covered turn 1 and turn 4.
Oh, how good's that?
So you had massive grip in the turn 1, exit of turn 2 wanted to kill you, entry to turn 3 wanted to kill you, and then you had a great exit out of turn 4. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before in the sim, and I'm sure that's exactly what it's like in real life for the drivers, and it's so cool to be able to experience that in the sim. And it's the first time I've really had that feeling of the car changing with the track, and blew me away, and nearly blew me into a wall too, but that's another story.
I've had
That's
this.
pretty cool.
How good is it, Anthony? I mean, I think that we should just reveal this entire podcast is just a selling ploy to get you to come onto iRacing, Anthony, and bring the Minds of Motorsport liveries and everything to iRacing. We got to see it.
Oh, mate. They'd actually look pretty good. I'd have to make sure I get a couple of cars, but as long as I'm not down at the back, have to try and recruit someone who's good.
No, I can tell from
Kessie.
what you know. Yeah, you'll be in front of Kessie for sure.
Yeah, you'll be way in front of me, mate. You got nothing to worry about.
The irony is, as much as we hark on Kessie for being a shitty driver, he's actually really good now. He's like upped his level to a point.
He is?
I mean, in one car, I'm mediocre, and then the rest of them, I'm just trash.
What's the one car?
Supercar.
The supercar.
Yeah.
Specifically the Falcon, because even though on iRacing the Holden and the Falcon are the Holden and the Ford are exactly the same, they have a different visual aspect to the cockpit, and I tend to struggle a little bit more in the Holden, but Daniel Williams keeps making me drive the Holden in the Enduros.
Bastard.
So,
No, I'm kidding.
yeah, no, well, he's way faster than me, so he's the primary driver. Then, of course,
But it does make a difference, just because you know what, we're a V8 podcast, so I'm going to talk about this. There's a lot of talking going around that the Holden is faster than the Ford or vice versa. That's a load of bullshit. Like you said, it all comes down to what car you feel comfortable in terms of the cockpit. You know, the Ford has a nice little bump in the middle of the bonnet that you can either use or not use. And I think it was Hobbo88, go subscribe, Brenton Hobson. He was saying that when he drove the Ford compared to his usual Holden, he actually found the hump in the bonnet didn't help. It actually got in the way of his driving because he wasn't used to it. So it's just interesting that little effect can change how you drive a car.
Yeah, and you look at the pace of the guys up front. Like your team actually has a driver who switches back and forth.
Old mate
like
Danye.
crazy. You've got Dane West, who's Danye West, I almost said.
Danye West, yeah.
One of the quickest guys in Scops, and he will switch between the Ford and the Holden race after race. I don't know how he does it, to be honest. He's obviously a natural.
He's a wizard.
Well, lucky Reece Gardner's not on here because he'd be having conniptions and kittens about the fact that Dane's so inconsistent with his car choice.
Can we get him on here?
Doing? Is he in the Ford or the Holden? This round, I mean, really?
It's scary how close you sound to Reece.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, Reece, how you going?
Popped in the
Southpaw
Discord
racer.
for a couple
Thanks,
of seconds.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to the next little topic here, we've got a few updates to a few more cars, and we've got a Renault let's start at the first one, which is the Dallara F3 car.
What a car.
What a car. I mean, let's go. We'll talk about it in a second because the other one is what do you call it? The
Formula Renault 3.5,
which is an absolute beast. It's like the F3 car, but just on steroids. It's ridiculous,
mate. The power that thing has got to the rear wheels, and the sound as well. The sound matches the power, but a really good car. And having a chat to some of the guys about it, they likened it to a GP2 car. Before people start hating me, I know it's not a GP2 car, or Formula 2 now, sorry, but...
It's so close, though. I 100% agree. I'm a massive F1 fan and a massive GP2 fan, and I mean, I've seen so many bits of footage of a GP2 car on board or an F2 car, what do you want to call it, and the sound, the stance of it, the shape, the size, it's so close to it. So, yeah, I totally would agree that it's very similar to an F2 car for sure.
And in terms of iRacing, like... We needed a B class open wheel car, which we hadn't gotten yet, and now we've got it. And basically now you have a good progression through Formula Renault 2.0 / Skip Barber and D class. Then you got C class, F3, B class 3.5, and A class if you can be bothered Formula 1. But it's really good to actually have that progression now through the classes.
It means that speds like you can race quite often.
I wouldn't go that far.
Speds, shout out to Tom Freer.
Yeah.
We're all speds and speds alike.
I've stolen the word, by the way.
But the 3.5 is something that will become, I'd say, very important in iRacing and championships next year. But one that I wanted to just point out is the F3 car, OSR, who really is solely focused on the V8 because that is our racing culture here in Australia and New Zealand. The V8 supercar is a religion, and on iRacing it's no different. But OSR is actually going to introduce the F3 Championship next year that will be run on a Thursday night. So I'm super psyched for that, guys. Fantastic.
I hope they have a fourth split.
I don't think you make that one either.
Probably not.
No, give it a crack, Casey.
We'll see how you go. Thursday's a bit of an iffy day for me for work and stuff, but we'll see how we go.
Pussy. No, I'm kidding.
Wow.
I know Brock will be there. Brock will be in it. I'm going to give it a crack, I reckon, as well.
Yeah.
I can't drive that bloody V8. I'm telling you. But look, that is all done and dusted. That is the news. Oh, and by the way, just a quick throw in there that Jared Filso won 2018 Scops Championship. Do you guys know that?
Oh, what?
Wait,
he did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just
I
chuck
called
that
him
in
the
there.
two-time before. He's like Dr. Disrespect. He's the two-time.
The two-time championship.
The two-time.
Well, Jared, if you're listening, I know you are, mate, lifting those doors onto the CNC machine down there. Mate, we're going to talk more about that next show for sure. Like, the next show is going to be the year round off, so just before Christmas, we'll get our Flatchat Scops Awards, which please get your votes in. There are prizes for those awards, so make sure you see that Google thing that Chris did, whatever it is.
It's a poll of some description. Yep,
it's a poll.
It'll definitely be on our
poll.
Facebook page, Flatchat Podcast. Make sure you give us a like, etc., etc. Talking about Scops though, so there was a couple of other people in there. So obviously, two people who we didn't really cover it off that much, but who got a chance to drive in the Aussie Driver Search.
So this is where, Anthony, I know you're probably tuned out by now because we're talking a whole bunch of nonsense with sim racing, but mate, I wanted to ask you about your interaction with Kyle Austin from Aussie Driver Search, because for the second year in a row, we have been completely blown away by the fact that we've got a guy from iRacing that's always in competitive series in the V8 Supercar here on the service. He's got to drive in the Toyota 86 for next year. So this year was Jake Burton, and Ethan Griggold has just won this year. And I think we're all under a massive amount of admiration and what would you call it? We're very happy and appreciative that Kyle is doing what he does, because he's giving guys like Jake and Ethan a chance to show their stuff in the real world, where otherwise it might be a little bit too hard to, say, fund such a venture. So, yeah, Kyle, I've met Kyle. He's a fantastic bloke. Did you guys have a bit of a chat about Aussie Driver Search and maybe even Jake when he was on your show?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had Kyle on the podcast and gave us a bit of a background, because I was fascinated by where that initial drive for it came from himself, and he spoke of Jake and Jai Robson, and yeah, it was quite insightful. Good to sort of hear it from his side, because obviously you see it as just they do their thing, go around, give people drives, but when you hear the inspiration and the vision that he has behind the project, it certainly has taken off, and obviously that's why people are buying into that potential to get themselves out there and get a chance, because if you're good enough, it will only take you one season in this and you could end up forging a career in motorsport.
Yep. Yeah, he really has brought a new level to this particular niche, which is being able to give people, like you say, give people drives. And we're just lucky, I mean, to think that two guys in successive years have come from our iRacing Down Under community. I mean, it's hard to say we're not proud. We're definitely very proud. And
absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to see what Ethan can do. Jake did a great job, and Ethan's, it's funny that he came second runner-up in the Scops Championship and almost...
I think he came third, but anyway.
Oh, sorry, Madison came second. Sorry.
Yeah.
You would have thought I'd know.
And so he actually, I believe he beat out Mads as well. Mads got a drive in the Super 2 car, did 2 laps, and was very competitive. And I think I saw that he may have come fourth or something, which is
fourth on
pretty
the day,
decent.
Yeah.
Never driven the car before, Like there was a lot of guys putting up posts that they were involved in it from the sim racing community. I saw a photo of Dylan Shepherd changing tyres, so I'm guessing that's something to do with his job. He was the winner of the first VSR showdown.
No, he just snuck in and just went, I reckon I could come in here. Wait,
just,
who are you again? Oh, shit.
He lowered the tyre pressures for Ethan before he did his lap.
I was going to say, how much did Ethan pay Dylan to sabotage all the other tyres out there?
These aren't greens. That's all we have. Go.
Unfair advantage. You almost think that he was working for TTR. Moving on.
Smooth.
Yeah, look, let's see how Ethan goes. And I think that speaking to Ethan today, he is pretty keen to come and have a chat. Hopefully we can get Jake on too at the same time. Maybe even Kyle to come on too to have a chat. I know that we're only a little organisation here, but the word does spread. And to hear what they're going to do, I'm excited to hear Ethan's mindset. I mean, we've got Dane Warren heading into the F4 car. Ethan's driving the 86. Rogers is going to have a crack at the one. By the way, did Rogers have a go in this?
I actually don't know. Haven't got any feedback on Rogers. Sorry, I pushed so hard for him to get the drive, but I had nothing to do with it. By the way, I was just a whinger. Josh is a professional, and that's why he got the drive.
So that's all to come. So next show, just transitioning to wrap this thing up, guys. Next show we'll have the Scops Flatchat Scops Awards all announced. Please get those votes in on all the social pages. Check out and please subscribe to all the usual stuff. Anthony, mate, really, really pleasure to have you on, and we'll definitely continue to listen to your show. And I hope any of our listeners can go and check out the Minds of Motorsport, mate. Thanks again.
Absolutely, mate. Being for a big year, 2019, I think it's going to be quite big for the podcast. So, yeah, thanks for having me as again.
Yeah, no problem, mate. No problem at all. And Brock, cheers for coming on, and I'll see you out there on track in those Indy cars. I'll slow down this time for you, just so you can catch up.
Oh, my. Just you wait. I have a push to pass button. I got 10 of them. I'll use them all in one lap if I have to.
Yeah, totally. Mate, those things fly with that push to pass thing, don't they? Jesus.
Oh, dude, you want to, you do not want to hit that as you're accelerating out of a corner. That's big dead.
And Chris, mate, it feels weird outroing you, but you'll be introing me next show.
Yeah, probably. Hopefully, my voice has fully come back. It seems to vary at the moment, but what I can say is, Anthony, make sure that you keep an eye on that Ethan Griggolt, because he is going to be a weapon. I can tell you now. Maybe he can bring some of that fuel saving to the Toyota 86 series, and they can put less fuel in for those 6 lap races that they do.
He'd actually be pretty good to have a chat to anyone really in any kind of motorsport media outlet or podcast, I reckon, because pretty good. Pretty competitive guy and pretty smart too. But anyway, guys, thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time in a couple of weeks. Take care, and let's let the outro run. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this week's Flat Chat Podcast V8 Scops edition. If you like the show, you can find all our social links in the description below. Subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and share it with your friends. Remember, folks, less brake, more throttle, and above all else, don't pleb it.